All right, week 9 of the fantasy football season. So it's time for your reminder that kickers are people too. I'm going through, I'm ranking all 28 kickers starting for week 9 of the fantasy football season. Let's hop right on into it. All right, first up, 4 buys for us in week 9. Andre Schmidt of the Cleveland Browns, Nick Folk of the New York Jets, Jake the Snake Elliott of the Philadelphia Eagles, and Chase McLaughlin of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So if you have one of these guys, I'm going to get you fixed on the waivers for week 9. All right, first up, everybody's favorite category. Start them every week. Only 2 kickers on there now because Chase McLaughlin is on a bye. We got Eddie Pinheiro of the San Francisco 49ers and obviously the GOAT, Brandon Aubrey of the Dallas Cowboys. You got either of these 2 kickers, go ahead and plug them in. Great matchup for Aubrey this week on Monday night against the Cardinals, and Eddie Pinheiro, a solid one as well, taking on the New York Football Giants, a bad defense out there as well. So these 2, if you got them, just start them every week. All right, first up, Cam Little of the Jacksonville Jaguars, coming off a bye, taking off the Las Vegas Raiders, who are also coming off a bye. Interesting matchup here. We've seen some struggles from not only the Jaguars offense, but from Little himself. Hits that 70-yarder in preseason. Hasn't quite lived up to the hype here, but this is not a very good Las Vegas Raiders team. Defense is, the strongest part of a bad football team, I think, at least the pass rush wise. I'm worried about this Jags offense, but I think we're going to see some field goal opportunities. I think he's a fine start for us here in week 9, especially 4 buys, 2 guys that you're probably in your lineup. So Cam Little, a fine start for week 9. All right, Andy Borregales of the New England Patriots at home against the Atlanta Falcons. And look, I think there's a little bit of upside here with Andy. The Patriots led by Drake May are moving the football, scoring left and right. The only real problem is touchdown heavy offense. They aren't kicking a whole lot of field goals out there. They're getting 7s on the board, taking on an Atlanta team that just got absolutely carved up by the Miami Dolphins. So if you're having to get a waiver wire pickup, I think potentially he could be a decent pickup for us. I'm going to put him in the if you have to category, but he's towards the top end of this category, close to a fine to start here. But if you're in a pinch, waiver wire pickups, I think he's probably a really safe floor guy, maybe not the highest ceiling in the world. So put him in the fine to start, or in the if you have to, but a potential waiver pickup in week 9. Okay, Cameron Dicker, the kicker of the Los Angeles Chargers, having a really strong season, but the Chargers offense has sputtered a bit in spots. Did miss a field goal on Thursday night, but after 10 days off, taking on a dreadful Tennessee Titans team, I think this is a fantastic matchup for us going into the weekend. I'm loving Cameron Dicker in this spot here. If Dicker's available, people do weird stuff. Go ahead and scoop him up. I think he's going to have a huge week for us in week 9, a potential for a monster number because the Titans are really bad. Chargers offense is getting rolling, but they do sometimes sputter in that red area. Okay, Brandon McManus of the Green Bay Packers struggled a bit on Sunday night after coming back from injury. Pittsburgh, not the best place to play. Going home, taking on a Carolina Panthers team that was pretty bad last week on defense, but overall has been not horrendous on defense this year. But this Packers offense, I think, has been looking for the end zone, especially after a few misses from McManus. I still think he's a fine start here. Get a couple of close field goals, hopefully. I just don't know if they're trusting him for distance. Maybe they don't want to push him coming back from the injury. Could have just been a little bit of rust last week, so don't love him necessarily, even though they are playing a team you think that they would put up some points on. Fine start for us this week. I think he'll bounce back after a rough Sunday night start. All right, Daniel Carlson of the Las Vegas Raiders coming off a bye, hosting the Jacksonville Jaguars. This Raiders offense has been a real roller coaster. Pretty bad, in fact, the last few weeks are horrendous against Kansas City, obviously. Now, if they get Brock Bowers back, I think this offense could open up some more. They can move the football in better areas and better opportunities. But I just don't know if Carlson's worth the risk yet. I think I'm going to actually need to see something from Jacksonville. So go ahead and bench Carlson for week 9. I just think it's a little too risky for us. There are better options out there for us. Okay, Riley Patterson of the Miami Dolphins. Look, I'm not going to overreact to what the Dolphins did to the Falcons on Sunday. Thursday night game, hosting the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore Ravens defense actually been pretty decent the last few appearances for them. So I'm going to just avoid this at all costs. I don't trust the Dolphins ever to do anything, and let alone they don't even attempt many field goals. They just go for the touchdown out there. So go ahead, bench Riley Patterson as per usual in fantasy. Okay, Tyler Loop of the Baltimore Ravens. Didn't really matter who his quarterback was last week against the Bears. Solid week for us as well. But Lamar's back Thursday night at Miami. This is a great matchup for us. The Dolphins are one of the worst run defenses in football. Ravens love to run the football. And with Lamar getting back into action, maybe we see, some hiccups here and there in the red zone, more field goal opportunities for us. And if not, I think we're going to see a lot of points. Thursday nights have been really high scoring this year. I think the Ravens are going to be on that end for this matchup. So Tyler Loop in a love it spot in week 9. Thursday nights used to be a little scary. I think we got points for us. Give me Tyler Loop here in week 9 in a fantastic matchup against the Dolphins. Okay, Jake Bates of the Detroit Lions coming off of a bye, hosting the Minnesota Vikings. And this Vikings team has been kind of all over the place this year. Their defense has fallen off. It seems like J.J. McCarthy stepping in, back in action. I just think this one could get ugly. The Lions are going to go touchdown. They are not going to be attempting field goals. Plus, Bates has been really awful from 50-plus this year so far. So I think he's a fine start for them. Maybe we get lucky and the Vikings get some red zone stops. And the Lions aren't just going to be like, go for it. They're just like, we're just going to keep adding points because who knows what the Vikings offense will look like this week. So Jake Bates, a fine start for us in week 9. I think the ceiling might be a little limited due to the touchdown factor. Okay, Matt Gay of the Washington Commanders picks up an injury for us last second before Monday Night Football. He is questionable this week. They're playing on Sunday night against the Seahawks. I'm going to put him in the if you have to category. If the week goes bad, you need a kicker out there, you're waiting, you're seeing, he could potentially have an okay game against the Seahawks. I think the Commanders moved the ball well against Kansas City. They just didn't have a kicker, so they couldn't kick field goals, and they ended up turning the ball over on downs. There were opportunities to be had. Jaden Daniels might be back as well. So I don't necessarily want to say bench him, but be very, very cautious if you're going to decide to play him. Monitor that injury throughout the week. Matt Gay, for now, if you have to. Okay, Jason Myers of the Seattle Seahawks, same game. They're going to the Commanders coming off a bye, and this Seahawks offense has been pretty good this year with Sam Darnold. Now, rough outing 2 weeks ago now against the Houston Texans in this one. Myers has been a little inconsistent this year, usually a very reliable kicker, just maybe not from distance. He's added a little bit of distance this year, but some misses, some blocks so far. I still think he's a fine start. This Commanders defense is not very good at all. 2 weeks to prepare, fresh rest. DC, Sunday Night Football. Give me Jason Myers a fine start here in week 9. Maybe not the highest ceiling in the world, but I think a very consistent floor week in and week out. All right, Fairbairn of the Houston Texans. They're hosting the Denver Broncos. Very interesting matchup this week. We saw the Texans offense look really good against a beat-up 49ers defense. We saw them look terrible the week before against the Seattle Seahawks. This Denver defense is really, really good, but they're probably going to be without Patrick Surtain in the secondary, so that could open some things up. I think we saw a positive trend for this Houston offense. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say he's a fine start, potentially a great start for us in week 9. I think there's going to be some real opportunities for us there. And Houston, if they don't get those touchdowns, great distance. Fairbairn is a super reliable kicker. I think we're going to see a little bit more movement of the football than we've seen for a majority of this season in Houston. Interesting game, interesting matchup. Still a little bit scary because Houston has just had such dreadful offensive performances this year. But Fairbairn, very reliable for us. Put him in the fine to start category here for week 9. All right, Evan McPherson of the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals, man, putting up points, can't stop a dang nosebleed. They will be hosting the Chicago Bears. The Bears defense is really not that good. They've been forcing turnovers, but from a point standpoint, they are not stopping people. I think there might be a touchdown factor here. Like maybe the Bengals just score too many touchdowns on offense and we don't get enough field goal opportunities. McPherson also been a little shaky the last 2 seasons after being Mr. Money McPherson coming into the league. I think he's an if you have to for this week. Again, I just don't know what the Bengals upside is field goal wise. I think they go for touchdowns. They score touchdowns. They're ultra aggressive. They got to win football games. Not the best opportunities out there, but they are scoring points, so that is bringing up his floor a good bit out there, getting those touchdowns. So if they're scoring 4 touchdowns and kicking a field goal, a solid 7 for us in fantasy might be the way to go for you, but there are better options out here for week 9. Okay, Santos of the Chicago Bears, another guy that could potentially have some very high upside coming off of an injury over there. They're taking on the Bengals. Terrible, terrible defense. We just saw the Jets light them up. But this Bears offense also very consistent. They are aggressive on fourth down, though. They aren't necessarily kicking all the field goals that we would like to see. I think Santos could be an interesting waiver stream this week. If you have one of those guys, he's probably, I would almost guarantee he's available out there. I'm a little concerned, though, with what we're going to see out of this Bears offense. We've seen them kind of struggle. Caleb's been bad, actually, for most of this season. So maybe a limited ceiling. He could potentially be a fine start. I'm going to put him in the if you have to category. But for streams out there, I think he could be an interesting play against such a terrible Bengals defense. But again, could lay a dud. Chicago going for it on fourth down, scoring touchdowns, not kicking field goals in a shootout. Okay, Michael Badgley of the Indianapolis Colts. He has been a great fill-in after Spencer Schrader's injury and a fantastic start. But the Colts offense, baby, they just score points. Heading to the Pittsburgh Steelers, this is one of, if not the worst defense in football out there. They can't stop a nosebleed, and this is one of the best offenses we've seen this decade. I love this matchup for Badgley. Not the best place in the world to kick, but it's a noon game. Should be decent weather. Hopefully it's not too cold or windy out there, but should be a nice time. Should be a lot of points scored by Indianapolis. The Steelers defense is terrible out there, and maybe we see a little bit of hiccups, some weird fluky stuff out there, and we get a few field goals too, but I love this matchup. Too good to pass up here in week 9. All right, and I'm loving Michael Badgley this week against the Pittsburgh Steelers, so I'm heading straight on over to Underdog, taking Michael Badgley over 1.5 field goals on Sunday. And if you guys are new to Underdog, make sure you sign up using the link down below. Promo code THECATCH. You're going to get a free pick 'em for week 9. Take that pick 'em and take Michael Badgley to have over 1.5 field goals. And if both hit, you're going to automatically double your cash entry. And on top of that, Underdog is giving all new users who deposit with promo code THECATCH a 50% deposit match up to $1,000. And as soon as you play $5 on Underdog, they're automatically going to give you an additional $50 to use towards week 9. Again, that's new users signing up using promo code THECATCH. Be sure to take advantage of all of Underdog's exclusive week 9 NFL offers. Okay, Josh Karty of the Los Angeles Rams coming off a bye. They are hosting the New Orleans Saints, and this Saints team is really, really bad, but their defense is not like the worst thing in the world. They did get some stops this past week against Tampa Bay, made life kind of difficult for them. Karty's been really bad and inconsistent for us. I do think he's fine to start potentially this week. Hopefully he figured out their kicking protections, had several kicks blocked, had some misses out there, but this is a little bit too juicy of a matchup for me with a good offense. Puka Nacua is going to be back. A Saints defense that's been pretty solid when it comes to keeping teams out of the end zone. But the offense, on the other hand, they're giving the teams touchdowns over there. So I think he's a fine start, a little bit more risky, but there could be a nice payoff for you here in week 9. Okay, Ryan Fitzgerald of the Carolina Panthers going to the Green Bay Packers. Probably going to be Bryce Young. Hopefully it's Bryce Young. Andy Dalton is a self-saboteur. Fitzgerald, bench him, man. This Packers defense has been awesome this year, especially against the run, and that's really how the Panthers move the football. Panthers have also been dreadful away from home. Go ahead and bench him. Not worth the play. We could see a very ugly Carolina performance once again here in week 9. Okay, Chad Ryland of the Arizona Cardinals going to the Dallas Cowboys on Monday Night Football. Interesting matchup here. This Cowboys defense is atrocious. I don't know who the quarterback's going to be. It's looking like it's going to be Kyler Murray. Is that a bad thing or a good thing? I don't know. I'm going to put him in the if you have to category. Also had some misses this year. There is potential. There is a wild card potential here that he has a big week because this Cowboys defense is so bad. Just so bad over here. But it is a little bit scary. You don't know what you're going to see from the offense. I mean, it's Bam night. I mean, I'd feel better, honestly, if it was Jacoby Brissett. We might have some more opportunities here. A little too risky for my blood, but another guy probably out there on the waivers could potentially be a steal Monday night. You got to have a huge week. Roll the dice. Throw out Chad Ryland in week 9. All right, Blake Grupe of the New Orleans Saints heading to the LA Rams. Tyler Shuck in at quarterback in his first NFL start. Do not play a kicker in a guy's first NFL start. The Rams coming off a bye. The Rams, one of the best defenses in the NFL. Pretty good team overall. I think it could be a long day for the Saints. No points getting scored. Do not risk it here in week 9. Go ahead and sit Blake at the Rams. All right, Joey Slye of the Tennessee Titans had a good start to the year, kind of falling apart, and this Titans team is a train wreck, another disaster team. Chargers defense looking a lot better. Do not risk it. Do not play them. Avoid these bad offenses. Teams are starting to pack it in. I don't know what we're going to see from him. And again, Joey Slye is not a very good kicker, and he was playing out of his mind early in the season. I think he's come back to earth. Go ahead and bench him in Fantasy Week 9. All right, this one hurts a little bit. Will the Thrill, Reichard, they're going to the Detroit Lions. And I think there's just too much of a question mark on this Vikings offense. Now, Will is one of the best kickers in the league. He makes all his field goals. Unless there's a camera wire in the way, that's now to the NFL has blocked this year and not said a dang word about. The fix is in over here. I just think it's too risky over here. If you have to play Reichard, if you don't want to get rid of him, if you believe in J.J. McCarthy, believe in the Vikings offense for the rest of the season, or just think it's a great opportunity that he's going to kick several field goals for the rest of the year, keep him, don't want to cut him. Just don't expect too much. I think it could be a tough sledding here in McCarthy's first start back from injury. Okay, Will Lutz, traveling to the Houston Texans, a great defense. Offense did look good against the Cowboys, but it's the Cowboys, guys. I think he's in the if you have to category here. I just don't necessarily trust Bo Nix in this offense. We've seen them get bogged down in games, not able to move the football, get shut out. And Sean Payton is ultra aggressive. He forgoes field goals and goes and gets touchdowns. I think it's stupid with a young quarterback, but it is how the Broncos are approaching things. We could see a rock fight out there. We could see a 13-10 game. And if you're on the 13 side, it's not terrible. But if you're on the 10 side, not a very good week out there. So if you have to play Will Lutz, if he's available, weird pickup rules or something like that, you can play him. I think, maybe we get lucky. We see 3 or 4 field goals. But I would avoid here in week 9. Okay, Gano back from injury. The Giants' mojo and season has been lost. They sent it away in Denver and then rip our man Scattaboo. I just don't know what this team's going to be able to do offensively. They are taking on the 49ers, who are injured on defense and look bad this past week against Houston. I just don't want to risk it. Bench him. The vibes are all-time low in New York after being at an all-time high. I think we could see a lackluster performance here from the Giants. Plus, guy coming back from injury, going to be some rust on him, especially at an elderly age. Go ahead and bench Gano in week 9. Okay, Chris Boswell of the Pittsburgh Steelers, a great performance on Sunday night. And you know what? He's just ultra reliable from distance. He's ultra reliable in Pittsburgh. They're taking on the Indianapolis Colts. Colts defense isn't the best thing in the world. They do have some struggles in the back end. And Rodgers has gotten the offense going the last 2 weeks. I love this matchup for Boswell. We see them really struggle in the red area. Now, maybe they start scoring some touchdowns this week and we have a lackluster performance. But his reliability, his consistency has me feeling really good. Mike Tomlin will always take points when he can take points. And the Steelers are kind of like, if they get behind the sticks, they're cooked. So if we can get a 3rd and 9, they ain't converting. They're kicking a field goal. We're in really good shape. So loving this matchup. A great kicker matchup in Pittsburgh on Sunday in week 9. Give me Chris Boswell is a love start for this week. Okay, Matt Prater of the Buffalo Bills. They are hosting the Kansas City Chiefs. Really interesting matchup. I think he's a fine start for us here in week 9. He's been pretty solid all year for them. Buffalo's offense obviously looked a lot better against Carolina. Kansas City defense has been solid, but these games are always shootouts. My only concern is, are we going to go for it on 4th down like every drive? Are we going to be scoring touchdowns every drive? And it gets ugly out there for our kickers. No field goal opportunities. Ugly kind of game. But if we aren't, if we're a little more conservative, we get into the red area, teams take their points. I think there could be a high ceiling potentially here for Matt Prater. Fine start in week 9. Little bit risky, but solid team. Good game. I like Prater overall in week 9. Okay, Parker Romo of the Atlanta Falcons are traveling to New England. And after a fantastic start, he's been pretty all over the place, getting kicks blocked. He's missing field goals. And this Falcons offense, man, if it's Kirk Cousins, send him to the moon. If it's Michael Penix, potentially a little bit more playable. The problem is the Patriots are like the worst team to run against. They are a great run defense out there. And that's the Falcons offense with Bijan, okay? I'm going to go ahead and bench Parker Romo. It's a bad spot for them. I can't trust the Falcons. Week in and week out, I do not know what the Falcons are going to give me on offense. I will never trust them. I don't know how you trust them. Go ahead and bench Parker Romo in week 9. Okay, Harrison Butker of the Kansas City Chiefs, finally traveling to the Buffalo Bills. Look, this is going to be a great game. Kind of the same thing goes with Prater. Butker's been a little inconsistent, but we know in big games, he's going to make his kicks. The problem is, are we going to see touchdowns out here? The Bills defense is very bad, and they are losing pieces every day. Now, I think it's going to be a high-scoring affair. Chiefs might be ultra-aggressive versus the Bills. I think the Bills might settle for 3 more than KC does, and this Kansas City team has been putting up points and putting up touchdowns unlike anything we saw last year. I do like Butker as a fine to start. I just think there could be a limited ceiling. We don't necessarily know how this game script's going to go. If we do have teams playing a little more conservative, it's a great game script. If they are more aggressive, obviously not the best for us. But I think he's a fine start in week 9 for fantasy football. But that's going to do it for us this week. Let me know down in the comments below all of your kicker questions for fantasy as we head into the weekend. If you haven't already, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. We got daily fantasy content, all the content you could ever want. Your must-starts for quarterbacks, tight ends, running backs, wide receivers, for every single matchup. Your must-start defenses, waiver wire ads, guys to target before this trade deadline is fastly approaching us. If you want to see more of me, check out the link down below. Talking football, not just fantasy over here. Again, like, subscribe, and share. We'll see y'all tomorrow.